Welcome to the Heart-Led Business Show, where compassion meets commerce and leaders lead with love. Join your host, Tom Jacobs, as he delves into the insightful conversations with visionary business leaders who defy the status quo, putting humanity first and profit second. From heartfelt strategies to inspiring stories, this podcast is your compass in the world of conscious capitalism. So buckle up and let your heart guide your business journey.
Ladies and lads, lend your lobes for a lusciously luminous lark with the one and only, the queen of charisma and charm, Clarissa Burt. She's the CEO shining in the limelight, the chief assurance officer crafting confidence with her self-esteem regimen, and the award-winning author adding sass to the prose. So buckle up, buttercups, because today on the Heart-Led Business Show, we're diving deep into the beats of her sparkling empire. Clarissa, welcome to the show.
I am so thrilled to be here. It's good to see you. I know we had a pre-show some months ago, and it's good to see you again now, Tom.
So good to see you as well, and I'm glad you're surviving the heat there, Arizona.
Yes.
So tell me, what's your definition of a heart-led business?
I think, first of all, we have to always remember that it's really important also as a leader to be a critical thinker, right? We're leading a team of people that still have to be doing research, analyses, and evaluations of whatever it is that we're doing. But I think that it's important also to lead with objectivity and fairness and flexibility as well. So that, I think, is really one of the most important aspects to understand about leading with your heart. We all want to be doing good. There is also a bottom line to be worried about. Let's just call it a spade. It is what it is. But I think that heartfelt leadership is also bringing self-care, knowing how to, the leader himself is taking care of himself, and he's making sure that self-care is involved somewhere along the line with his team, because you're going to get the best work from people that are feeling the best about themselves. And I know that just by reading my book, it was really important that we really step up for ourselves in that realm. Enough sleep, eating properly, all the things, but self-care is really important. I think another word that we hear a lot, but is really paramount, is the authenticity of it all. You really have to embrace being authentic and sharing what you know, and also being able to say as a leader, that's not really my forte. Would you guys mind getting some more information on that so we can make a critical thinking or a more educated decision? So I think that's also a really important part of being heart-led and heartfelt when you're working in your businesses. A human connection is really important. Also, when we're in the throes, in the boardroom, in the meetings, and the things that we do, we also have to understand that the most important thing we're doing is connecting with the end user, the people that are going to be benefiting by the work that we are doing. So keeping that always in mind. And I think that heartfelt businesses also lead with empathy. They lead with some sympathy at times, but certainly with empathy. So to be championing that frequently and keeping that forefront, I think is really important. We also have a purpose when we are leading. Never veer from or steer away from the end game, the end goal, and what is the actual purpose that we are here for. And then knowing that, again, it's impact, right? That bottom line, knowing that we're hitting our bottom line at the same time, and never feeling guilty about that. You fed it already to me, and that is, should we ever feel bad or guilty or do the blame, shame, guilt game on ourselves when it comes to cutting our check for the hard work that we have done as well? And I'd like to think that the answer to that is certainly not. We're working toward the end. We're working with our hearts, always in our heart beating for our purpose-driven model. But at the same time, yeah, it's okay to go ahead and nobody else is going to pay your bills, right, unless you do. So yes, certainly.
Totally. I'd like to go back to one thing that you said about the critical thinking as one of that was like one of the first things that you mentioned about having a heart-led business. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that in terms of how that comes into play? Because that to me is like very heady. Yeah. And I think that's cool because there needs to be that balance between the head and the heart.
I think as leaders, we always have to remember that we are leading. We can't step away from the fact that we're in a role where we are leaders, and whereas we're all about our heart and we're all about serving, we cannot ever, again, veer away from the fact that we are leading a team or our company is leading a charge. So as leaders, we have to be able to critical think our way through that. And as I said before, that comes down to listening. It comes down to explaining and listening to explanations, keeping ourselves flexible around whatever it is we're doing in certain analyses or the research that we do, the evaluations that will come through, but also keeping it fair. In other words, getting all of the information that we need to impact the bottom line while we're keeping ourselves open and viable to change, to fluctuation, and being fair about it. All being flexible about it as well. It's a very fine line. So it's a great question that you came back and asked that as well. But remembering that heartfelt, heart-led is still, you're still in a business, and there still is a bottom line that you will be accountable for as a heart-led leader.
And if you're not accountable to that bottom line, then you're not going to be a leader for very long.
Exactly. So I think we all go in, and by the way, we all go in with the best intentions. We go in with our lovely hearts, and we want to do as much as we can for the greater good. That's the one of the 4 parts of my self-esteem regime is look good, feel good, be good, and then of course the greater good. And the greater good is giving back, volunteering, paying it forward, tithing, all the things that we can do. But I also have to come at that with a bit of a caveat. People say, gosh, in these times, Clarissa, it doesn't always mean money, Tom. It doesn't always mean big, broad stroke gestures. Sometimes it's a smile, a compliment, and holding an elevator door open for someone, getting up for someone in public transportation that might need that seat a little bit more than you do. So again, just being able to still always have forefront and foremind doing the right thing. If you can be a heartfelt leader that wants to be a better leader tomorrow than they are today, that means that you are constantly critically thinking. You're constantly working on yourself. There's that self-improvement piece that we as leaders must always keep paramount. And that self-improvement, personal development piece that I've been in for a long time, my company does this as well. Wanting to be able always to do the right thing, but keeping our eye on the bottom line. It's very important.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a great explanation. Thank you for that. And tell us a little bit about your business and what inspired you to start a heart-led business.
In media for a very long time. So I know how media can really help people become experts, leaders, some celebrities in their field so that they too can then go on and reach a broader audience, reach a greater good, and have that expert status that helps people, it helps the individual have that credibility factor with whom they might work or with their clients. And so that's a really important part of it all. In the book, especially, as I said, it's look good, feel good, be good, and greater good. Mm-hmm. I think that all great leaders, whether they are in a heartfelt business or not, always have their eye on on a platform, on a cause, on something that they highly believe in. And it sometimes and most frequently starts with their why. For example, my why is abused women and children. This is where I navigate. It's where I have helped other organizations bring certainly in a pro bono way, because that's my way of giving back, getting them into the media as much as I possibly could. Especially during COVID, I was working with an organization called domesticshelters.org that happens to be headquartered here in Phoenix, where I live. And there are shelters, last I counted, there were about 3,500 shelters all over the United States for women and children. Yeah, it's huge. So just this one organization, and they bring together, they're almost an aggregator of information for women and children to be able to find in a quick way, or maybe sort to create the plan to exit. And believe me, it's a beautiful thing there. They've set up Amazon for every shelter, so people can go in and say, I want to donate to that shelter. And you go to their Amazon page and you see they need diapers and they need clothing or shoes, or whatever it is they may need. You can go and donate to that shelter, to that person, which is a beautiful thing. They also put out a phenomenal newsletter every month, which keeps everyone in the loop about all the new things coming up and coming along. So I've dedicated, especially during COVID, Tom, because during COVID we had the abusers were at home with the disease, with the abused. And that became really a pivotal and critical moment for women to be able to get out quickly and find a way to shelter. So that was as I say, find that one thing. If you're not broad stroke, again, a lot of these people that I've worked with do have a platform. It could be animals, shelters. It's all over. Thank goodness. There are so many heart leaders out there, Tom. There really are. I think these are times we take a look around and go, wow, we're so divided and everybody's so angry and what's going on? But there are so many good people still out there. So we must never lose faith.
That's great. And what's the shelter name again? So we can include that in the show notes.
domesticshelters.org.
We'll link that up into the show notes. So if people want to,
thank you. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
30 shelters across America. Wow. That means there's a big problem.
It's a huge problem.
Huge problem.
It's every day. And it's obviously it's 99% women, not only. So there are some men as well but rarely. And it's a huge problem. And it's a problem that continues to grow and get worse by the day, because the more angry society is, the more angry men are. Yep. And here's another thing that I will tell you as we're talking. Last year, our Attorney General here in the United States, his name is Vivek Murthy, came out and said that we have a youth mental health crisis. And that means that our youth, basically 50% of our youth from middle school, high school, and college age, are either depressed, anxious, they are thinking of committing suicide or have committed suicide. That's an extraordinarily high number. Let's take our veterans. We hear that our veterans are the famous 22 a day number, right? Or the infamous 22 a day number. We hear about that frequently as well. But the biggest growing group right now are men. And so they're buckling and they're breaking under the pressure of the economy, the pressure of all of the bashing, all the things. I don't want to go down too far the rabbit hole, but to bring to light the fact that we have so many men. Now, I will show you that the cover of my book is blue. And when it's three triangles. It's my working copy, obviously. Yeah, when I first got the cover back, it was 3 iterations of, it was pink, yellow, and orange. So it was really beautiful. It's very feminine. And my book is in Barnes & Noble. It's been there for the last 2.5 years. And so when it jumped off the shelves, the only thing, I have a New York City publisher, and the only thing that I had asked for, Tom, and you're not allowed to do this, would you please consider making those 3 triangles blue, just so that men might pick it up? Because self-esteem goes really wide and very deep, and it doesn't discriminate. It's not just don't compare yourself to others. It is so much more than that. And as I was doing my research and the work on myself, I took a deeper dive into different things. So as a heartfelt and as a heart-led business, I needed to put my money where my mouth was. So as I was writing the book, it's all about self-esteem, all the things in there. And again, it's a manual. You're going to do the work. You're not going to read about self-esteem. You're going to do self-esteem. So I'm really thrilled about that. But I found out also, as I was doing the research on myself, I picked up a book called Whisper Girls. Found her on YouTube. Lovely girl, Rudy Simone. And I bought the book. And I'll be darned, Tom, if I didn't go down her list and just go check. And whereas I would assume, and there's a spectrum, so I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor, but I will say that there's a spectrum that we all navigate on somewhere along the line. And whereas you may look at me, talk to me, and whatever else, be in a friendship with me, or you would never really think that I could have checked as many boxes as I did. So that was an eye-opening moment, Tom, because it was a moment in my life where I was able to understand how I was wired, why I was wired that way, and forgive myself for many things. Another book, real quick, Dr. Elaine Aron, PhD, Extra Sensitive People, or extra-sensitive persons or people. There's a documentary on Netflix, the whole thing. It's about 30% of the world suffers with this dis-ease. And it's really nothing more than the way we are triggered by the things of overwhelm. For example, bright light. Believe it or not, I've lived my whole life in front of bright lights, and my company is called In the Limelight. But we can't go overboard with too many bright lights. Smells. You can't cook in my house. I can't stand the smells. Sounds. If I'm in any city and an ambulance goes by, the police goes by, I've got to cover up because I can't stand the overwhelm of it. It hurts. It physically hurts. So with that, all of the things, and with that having been said, just a couple of examples to tell you that so many times in my lifetime along the way, I had heard, oh, you're such a pain in the ass. Oh my God, you're so difficult. And every time I heard that, it was another hammer. It was another hammer on the nail. It was a hammer on the head. It made me crouch a little bit to think that I know how great my heart is, but why is it that sometimes I can't externate? I can't communicate who I really am. So I will tell you also, and then I promise I'll be quiet. But I get very passionate about these things. Show. During COVID, the last 3 years of my life have probably been some of the most difficult. I've had other times that were certainly difficult, but I lost my brother to cancer. I lost my sister at my brother's funeral. I won't go down. My best friend was my sister. I lost my entire Google Drive. My mother was in a devastating car accident. I had to have hysterectomy where they took out an 8-pound tumor. I could be here all day with the list. Believe me when I did the betrayals. And so each one of them was absolutely, I'm going to say devastating, but it was like, here we go again. Pick yourself back up. Put your big girl britches back on. And what I was was at times crawled into a fetal position and sobbed for weeks, if not months, I knew that every once in a while, a couple times a week, I had to get up, put on those big girl britches, put on my makeup, do my hair, and get in front of another podcast that would have me talk about my book. And my book came really and truly not only a cathartic process, but definitely got me through some of the darkest times of my life.
And that's from the author's standpoint as well. You can imagine what that does for the readers of
Yes.
the book as well.
Yeah, my book dropped on the 21st of November, I think it was. By the 23rd, I was in bed with COVID.
Wow.
And I was 2 weeks with high fever, twice to the hospital. I won't bore you. But then we got into it was like Christmas, then it was New Year's. So I really wasn't able to jump on the bestseller thing at Amazon because I was sick. And so my book really didn't start to see love until about 2.5 months after it dropped. I've done 250 podcasts since then, but yeah.
What a great testament to actually doing the work that you prescribe in your book. Get up and just do what you need to do while you're still going through what you're going through and reeling from all the devastation.
And let me tell you also, for people that are solopreneurs and people that live alone, you're always in your own head. You are always in your own head. And you might have a quick call with your mom, or she's 84 and you can't bring her to. So you really, and this is where I say the courage to do the work, no matter how bad it feels, no matter how difficult it seems. There's no excuse anymore. There are books, there are classes, there are courses, there are documentaries, there's meetup groups, there's all kinds of things that you can do to help yourself along the way of your personal development journey.
Yeah, totally. Nothing quite that devastating happened to me, like all of that together. But like when I sold my business in 2018, that fitness business was such an identity of mine that I lost my identity when I sold it. And I was really lost for 6 months. And I remember my business coach, and we would talk like every other week. And she was like, Tom, just get up every day and do the 5 things that you have to do every day. And that's it. Just if you don't feel passionate about it, don't worry. Just do those 5 things. But doing that over and over again, then the business started, like the clarity started to happen and everything started to come back around.
Yep.
And it was amazing.
And I think we all have to learn. It's amazing. I think we also have to learn in this entire process, especially as heart-led leaders, to, again, give ourselves the grace and certainly the permission to step back sometimes. If it's an hour, if it's a day, if it's even a couple of days a week, step back, get out in nature, get into the sunshine, take that walk, read the books, do a chapter in a personal development book every day, journal, write down your thoughts. And then in the book, I got one of the exercises in the book from Louise Hayes, and then Jack Canfield had it in one of his works. So if it was good enough for them, it was good enough for my book. And it was the mirror therapy, which sounds weird, looks weird, feels weird, is weird. It's all the things. But when you can be your own, when you start to be your own raw session in front of a mirror, because there are 2 ways to approach a mirror. One is to look at the mirror and one is to look into the mirror. So we're either preening or we're screening, right? One is when we're getting ready and doing our beard. Well, you do the beard and I do makeup. We're preening, right? We're getting ready and we're not really spending the time. We're just getting ready. And we go back to preening, which is where we're really we're looking into the mirror, not looking at it, we're looking into it. And that's where we really lock eyes. And when you can do that, and some people can't, some people have a more difficult time with it. So I tell them just start with bite size, start with 30 seconds, start with, hi, how are you today? Clarissa, good to see you. Here we go. Another day. See you later. Off you go. Or you can go, hey, Clarissa, good morning. Good to see you. I'm so thrilled for you today because you've got another 2 or 3 podcasts. That means the book is doing well and the message is getting out to the people that really need the help. Want to let you know how proud I was of you the other day. That presentation you did in front of 100 people, knocked it out of the ballpark. Good on you. And I want to also let you know, I really, not only do I like you a lot, I love you too. I really love you. I love the person that you are. And I love the way you just got past those 3 years that almost desecrated you. You did an amazing job, kid. Keep up the good work. See you later.
What great self-talk. That's beautiful. Brilliant. Yeah.
But Tom, isn't that the crux of all personal development, self-improvement, self-esteem, and therein becoming a better heart-led leader? It's the self-talk, those daily demons, and we don't deal with them anymore. They're in the past. Right? So getting up every day and say, this is what the issue is. This is what the problem is. This is how we're going to solve it. And this is how we're going to help people. This is how we're not only going to help each one of us here at this table, but how can we help everyone else? And yeah, self-talk is 98% of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's shift gears just a little bit. If we've been touching around the topic of making profit in a heart-led business and how important that is. But yet a lot of heart-led business leaders struggle with the whole aspect of making a profit or having that relationship with money. So what type of advice might you give to some other heart-led business leaders?
I think, in my estimation, it should always be a percentage of the bottom line. I say pre-stabilize, it's not the correct word. You side ahead of time. It's like a 10% tithing. If you go to a certain church, they expect 10%. And that 10% is something that you know that you've worked into your books. You just know that's going out. I think that it's on you as a heartfelt leader, as a heart-led leader, to understand what kind of numbers you might be doing and what percentage you really feel comfortable giving out. And comfortable in the sense that nobody's expecting you to be doing first class round trip travel and buying a new yacht with a Lamborghini in the garage. I don't think anyone is expecting to see you do that. When you're in heart-led, you understand that you will take pretty much what is needed. And then I think that it's okay to also reward yourself with things. Make a list of the things. And they're probably not the things I've mentioned before, but they are things like, you know what? I'm going to buy myself that new dress. I'm going to buy myself, I'm looking at that suit, and that's the one I think I'm going to work real hard, make the numbers when I make the numbers that I have projected, I'm not only will I be I'm taking a salary, but I think it's going to be okay if I can give to myself. Maybe you do that twice a year. There are 2 things a year that you project because leaders also have to stay motivated, don't they? We are not perfect beings. And I think that's where the empathy part also comes in, right? We understand we have to be empathetic toward ourselves as well. But also that self-care piece I think that rewards are the kinds of things that it's, to me, and in my estimation, and if you ask me, I think it's just fine.
Yeah. And I like that aspect that you laid out as well, that it's part of self-care, but also having that relationship with money to make sure that you have enough to take care of yourself and you're giving the value to yours at the same time.
Absolutely. What are we in it for? We're in it for the satisfaction of knowing that we can be in a position to lead. We're in it for the satisfaction of knowing that we are leading and helping people. And I think one of the things that leaders teach as well is reward yourself. I will reward you. It's reward. A lot of times things are reward-based. And when I was a kid, you got a trophy when you deserved it. You didn't get a trophy just because you showed up. When I was a kid a long time ago, I think that it's a motivator, isn't it? It's a motivator, and it keeps one inspired to want to do the right thing, to want to work harder, to want to get the reward. I remember when I was a kid I was 5th grade, I think it was, we used to have the Parker Pen spelling bee.
Yes.
And I'll be darned. Remember the Parker Pen?
That was my graduation present too. I think a Parker Pen.
Yes. And I won the Parker Pen because I was a great speller. Now, I wasn't so good in class. And certainly when we got to algebra and trig, I was a disaster. But I was good, very good in English and extremely good in spelling, really good in spelling. So I would win and I really wanted to win that pen. So again, it kept me motivated. It kept me inspired and to do the work in school that would lead me to be able to understand how to break down some of those words, that all the things, I before E, except after C, and all the rules. English is tough too, by the way. You have to try to explain it to a foreigner. It's not easy.
Not easy at all. That's awesome. And I like that the whole concept as well. Like, you can't lead with your heart if you're struggling in other aspects of your life, and money being one of those biggest struggles for a lot of business owners. And you can't help other people.
Even during struggles, when you, as a heart-led leader, keep in its proper place, beating healthfully and warm, and even when you're going through struggles, as I said before, you may not be able to do the broad stroke donations and do what is expected of you at church or all the things, right? But you can definitely go out and leave. You can leave, I think they call them Easter eggs, or you leave little tokens around, right? You leave the smile, you leave the compliment. I'm constantly going into a supermarket and say, I love that top. That looks so great on you. I've never seen her before in my life. I'll never see her again. Yeah. But it's just that instant where I feel really good about saying something nice and she feels really good about getting the compliment. Win-win, ding-ding. Yeah. It's not that hard.
Where that person is in that day and what that could mean to them as well.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. Here's the other thing, that doing the work that I do and have done, especially in the last years of my life, it's made me more tolerant. It's made me kinder. It's made me more flexible and certainly more patient. So with that whole walk a mile in someone else's shoes thing, it takes on a whole new meaning for me now. So when somebody is cranky or they're weird or they're not necessarily, or they've dropped the ball or they are ornery or whatever, all those things, I take it with gee, I wonder what kind of day they are having, or I wonder what they're going through. A lot of people they cannot express and speak frequently and fluently to what is bothering them. They bottle it up and hold it in. And so I'm not saying we all have to be psychiatrists and psychologists, but we can just add, there's that little ripple, throw another little stone in the lake, another ripple, just the littler things that we might be able to do. Of course, if you can do bigger things, great. But I am definitely now, as a heart-led leader, more tolerant than I've ever been. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's, what do you mean you're cutting in front of me? Now it's, go ahead, please. Yeah, no, please. I insist. Yeah. You're in a hurry, go. You know? Yeah. So if I could have, as a 20-year-old, could hear myself today, because I came out of a very angry household where things were done with violence and raised voices. And it's a beautiful thing to know that, again, we all have that choice and decision to make, right, in life, Tom, and you've probably made it yourself. You can go left, you can go right. You can go, I'm going to be a victim my entire life, or I'm going to be a victor. And in order to be a victor, I need to do the work. And I did the work with the self-help section in the bookstores that we used to have back in the day, Walden Books, Border Books, and Barnes & Noble. And there were 40 or 50 books on those shelves, no more. And so those were the books that got me through. I got my guidance, my assistance, my support, all the things that I wasn't being taught elsewhere. And by the way, back in my day, we didn't talk about these things. It really wasn't a thing yet. Now, when you walk into Barnes & Noble, the only bookstore that's left in the States, and happily to say my book is on those shelves in the personal development section, it is rows upon rows upon rows of personal development, and it's $1 billion industry.
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it shows that there's an issue, obviously, in the world.
Yeah, just by default. The other thing I want to tell you, and I love this one too, a couple of different things real quick, and that is, we're always talking about the Joneses and how the grass is greener on the other side. I have two things that I say to that, and that is, the grass is always greener where you water it. So come home and water your own grass and forget about the Joneses. And the other thing, is it really grass, Tom, or is it AstroTurf? Is it real or is it plastic? Is it perception or is it reality? That's really important too, as a nugget to leave with your audience. And the last thing I'll say, because I know we're over time, sorry, I'm a talker. No. They told me when I was a kid that I was vaccinated with a phonograph needle. So vaccinated with a phonograph needle. I think and if you don't know what a phonograph is, everybody, just go look it up and stop making me feel so old. The other thing I will say is that as I was doing the work on the book, I am enough, you are enough, we are enough, everybody's enough, enough. And you know what, let me go look up the definition of enough. And by definition, enough is only as much as is required. So just by definition, the word enough isn't enough. Right. So here's the new mantra that I'll leave everybody with, Tom, because I think it's really important. Instead of saying I am enough, it is now I am so much more than enough.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's going to be my self-talk in the mirror definitely tomorrow or even before I go to bed today. So how can people learn more about you and get in touch if they want to work with you?
I'm inviting everybody over to dinner tomorrow night. No,
awesome. You're not cooking though, because it smells, right?
I'll cook out back. Okay. I have a barbecue. ClarissaBurt.com, and I'm basically everywhere. The book is on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble store. It's on Kindle Audible, and Clarissa Burt on all social except for Snapchat.
Is anybody using Snapchat these days? Anyway, I think it's still there.
I guess it's just not a thing in my world.
No. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom and your words of advice as well. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much. And by the way, thank you for staying up until midnight for me. I know you're in Taiwan and it's midnight there. Thank you.
That's part of life. We do what we need to do.
Thank you. Yes, we do.
And to our show listeners and watchers, thank you again for tuning in for today's episode with Clarissa. I really appreciate it. I know she really appreciates it as well. Make sure you're checking out the show notes down below and checking out everything that Clarissa is doing. We'll link all of that up into the show notes, so make sure you are checking that out. And if you could do us a really solid favor and share the show with somebody else that you might know that could use the advice that was shared today, I know I would appreciate it, and Clarissa would definitely appreciate it as well. So until next time, lead with your heart.
You've been listening to the Heart-Led Business Show, hosted by Tom Jacobs. Join us next time for another inspiring journey into the heart of business.